Truth and Tea with the Urban Evangelist. Welcome to Truth and Tea with the Urban Evangelist.
Thank you so much for making your way back to Truth and Tea this week. We know that this is the kind of content that you love, and it's the show and podcast that filters life through faith. I am the Urban Evangelist. Today, we are delving into an area that's not really highlighted much, especially in front of an audience like this. But we're so honored to have the presence of someone here today who is willing to pour out of his cup a struggle that he had with addiction. And today, we are joined by Chipego Siatwambo, who will help us unpack how to overcome addictions. Thank you so much, Chipego, for making the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we're looking forward to learning so much from your story, which is really, it's compelling, it's powerful, and I love how it comes to such an amazing and incredible end, because when we met today, one of the things you told me is you actually graduated from law school last year in December. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That is no small accomplishment.
Thank you.
But I know I'm jumping ahead of myself because that's like the very end. But I want to take you back to the very beginning. And as I was, doing a bit of research on addictions, I came across something that is a tool that can help you understand them. And this was really the 4 C's of addiction, that there's a stage of compulsion, there's cravings, there's consequences, and there's control. And so the first part, like the compulsion, talks about how you're just unable to help yourself, with that particular addiction. It's irresistible, it's overwhelming, and it's overpowering.
Yeah.
What were you addicted to?
So for starters, I was addicted to sex and I was addicted to drugs. Yeah.
And when we say drugs, what drugs are we talking about?
Narcotics and also alcohol.
Okay.
Yes.
Narcotics being?
Codeine and
And
blue marsh, like such kind of drugs, yeah.
All right. How were you first introduced to drugs?
Drugs mostly, I can say it's mostly by association. It was the kind of friends that I had. Yeah, so they gave me, and by then, because it was mixed with drink, so you couldn't tell the difference between the juice and it being mixed.
Okay.
So when I tested, I didn't like the taste, although the feeling is what I loved.
And when you were introduced, like by way of drink, were you aware that there was something in the drink?
Yes, because the drink tasted off.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And what age was this?
About the age, I'm not really sure, but I think 2017, I should have been 16 or 15, somewhere there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was happening, was it high school or was it a college setup?
I know it started first in high school, although in college it got worse. Because in high school, I had started, but then stopped because I needed to focus on finishing my grade 12.
Okay.
But then college and university, it just became worse.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you say high school, would you recall what grade you were in?
Grade 11.
Grade 11.
Yes.
And
grade
your
12.
friends introduced the drugs to you. Was it in a school setup? Was it at school? Was it after hours? And I know this is going to help someone. So I'm going in for the jugular.
Yeah, so it wasn't really in school. It was outside school. Although these friends were friends I met within the school setup. But starting out, it was not within the school setup. It was outside school.
You said you liked how you felt.
Yes.
What was in that drink? Do you know what was in the drink the first time you took drugs?
No, I was not really sure what was in the drink, yeah.
And your friends didn't break it down to you?
I didn't ask.
You didn't ask,
Yeah.
Okay. How did it make you feel?
Mostly, it made me feel very happy, like very jovial, jumpy, hyped, yeah. That's what I can explain that feeling, yeah.
And are you usually a quiet person? Is there a departure from your behavior when you're just in a sober state versus how you felt then?
Yeah, there's a total departure
Yeah.
between when you're in a sober state and when you're high on drugs. Because when you're high on drugs, you're like a totally different person.
No, what I meant was, by nature, are you quiet and reserved and shy?
By nature, around different people, yes, I'm quiet and reserved, but around some of the people that I know, I do talk, I do jump up and down.
Okay.
But when I took the drugs, it's like that other side of me was able to manifest even to those who I was not comfortable being around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you take the drugs, you go home. How did you go back for more?
How did I go back for
Yeah.
more? Mostly just called back my friends and said, let's make another plan. And from then onwards, it was a sequence of plans that we made to say, okay, let's do this, let's do this. So we just kept on making plans time and time again, and especially when resources were available from any of us.
How did you make friends with your friends? I know some of them were in school.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to make a connection with, obviously it would happen when you're around that particular set of friends. How did they come into contact with drugs as well?
For them, I didn't really ask about their stories and how they came into contact with drugs, because for us, our association just started from there. Moving on forward, no one ever asked anybody about their pasts, and it was just a
Really?
present and future thing, yeah.
So your association was literally just bound by the activity that you were indulging in?
Yes, and also just academics from time to time.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then you said that you managed to put it on hold to focus on your grade 12.
Yes.
How did you perform in your 12th grade exams?
I performed very well because I got 9 points.
Wow.
But however, that
You're
was
sharp.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I got 9 points, but that was when I changed my line of focus, because term 1 up to mock, I didn't perform well.
Okay.
So term 2 going forward, that's when I performed well, because I put up my tokens and I said I needed to pass.
And you put a hold on your problem, or your at that time I would say it was a vice.
Yeah.
It hadn't become an addiction yet.
Apparently, I can say it was an addiction, because addiction is, I can just say it has stages.
Okay.
We cannot say it just has one stage where somebody has lost full and total control.
Yeah.
It has stages, just like a baby. When you have a baby, there's that stage of crawling, standing, walking. So that's the same with addictions. So there are all those different stages. So at that moment, it was an addiction. However, it wasn't at that point where I had lost total control of myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So mostly when I put a pause in around that term 2 towards the end, it's because I also stopped hanging out with my friends. I would spend most of my time studying in preparations for the exam.
Okay. All right. So it's not everyone that starts something that ends up an addict.
Yes.
Like there's those that have the ability, maybe you dabble in it, you try it, and then you decide this is not for me, and you're able to walk away.
Yes,
Okay.
because others, when they drink, when they smoke, or when they do something, they just say, I can go forward with this.
Yeah.
But others continue because of the many reasons or alibis that they have for their continuation.
What were your reasons and alibis for your continuation? Especially after, you've written your grade 12. What took you back?
What took me back is, I think there was nothing much I was doing. Yeah, there was less of productive time because I had a lot of free time. So I was like, let me call my friends, let's hang out. Because there's certain times when you have nothing to do, you get bored and you begin to wonder, what should I do next? Yeah, so now my friends just became a point of contact, say, okay, let me call them. Because by then I used to even watch series from morning till evening. So that routine got boring. And so certain days I'll just say, okay, guys, let's meet. It's been a long time. Yeah. And that's how I continued after high school.
This brings me to a verse really about how an idle mind really is the devil's workshop, because the lack of productivity, kind of pushed you to just take back the wrong company and get back to, what you had at least been able to put a stop to, even though it was, temporal. I've heard people say that those that become addicted to substances are always trying to seek the first high that they experienced. Is there truth to that?
Yes, there's a lot of truth to that. Because the first high is simply one exciting experience, like salvation. All of us want our first love that we had with God.
Right.
So now, even with the same, it's like you want to get high and high. You just want to have that same experience that you had in that very moment. So yeah, a lot of people want to experience that first high. It is only for those who want to continue taking the substance or the alcohol or the drugs that actually continue and want to experience that high. But for others, because of the negatives or the bad things that happen or that surround that event or that particular time, you find that they say, I can't go back and experience my first high. I never even want to drink at all.
Right.
Yeah.
What kind of family setup did you have?
Maybe you can rephrase the question, I'm not...
So some people that maybe would take to substance abuse to try and run away, from maybe a difficult home environment, maybe some traumas that they experienced. For you, was it purely just exploration and just trying something new? Or was there something that you were trying to run away from? Was taking drugs a form of escapism for you? Like, were you trying to escape something?
Unfortunately, no, I was not trying to escape anything.
Okay.
Because I come, I think, from an environment where we were raised right, Christian background and all these other things. But for me, it was just more of an experience. Yeah.
So you were actually Christian, born again, saved?
Mostly I tell people to say I just used to go to church minus knowing God before then. Yeah. Okay. Because I would go to church because my parents have told me to say going to church is the right thing. This is the way you're supposed to go. So at that moment, I only did it because that's what they believed in. But that was not my own belief.
Right.
Yeah.
You went along just to perhaps appease them.
Yes.
But there wasn't that inner conviction in you.
Yes.
Okay, all right. At what point then did you realize that, this thing is becoming a bit more uncontrollable?
I think for me, I didn't notice that it was becoming uncontrollable because I wanted to continue with it. However, what made me come to a point of realization that what I was doing was wrong is when I tuned in to listen to a sermon. Yeah, because by then my older brother, Robert, would talk to me and tell me about God. Like he would do what evangelists do, like preach the gospel, because he's the one who knew me up close because we spend a lot of time together. Yeah. So he would minister to me, he even put sermons on my laptop and I would ignore. But then apparently there's a particular day I had played a sermon by Joshua Selman. It's called Koinonia. So when I played that sermon, that's the moment I realized and recognized, say, what I had been doing was not the right thing. Yeah.
I'll get back to the sermon, just to park a bit in the addiction and how it grew. Did it grow by you increasing the amounts that you took?
Okay. So the addiction, yes, did grow with increasing the amounts that I took. It also increased due to exposure, because everything else in life is learned. No one ever comes with an idea of what has to happen in life. So you find that I had to learn and relearn the same bad vices and bad habits and the benefits of it, and so that's what increased my addictions.
And in terms of you saying like exposure, what could you just highlight a bit more on that? What kind of exposure?
So mostly it's with the music and the shows that I used to watch.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. They actually played a role?
Yes, they actually played a role.
In what way?
So mostly for the drug addiction came as a secondary addiction. The first one was sexual addiction, which came as a resultant effect of what I used to watch.
Okay.
So now at some point it became like I needed a substitute to feel high. So then the drugs became like in the absence of the sex addiction, I would take the drugs. Yeah. So the wrong content or the wrong things that I was exposed to, the music I used to listen to, began to reprogram my mind and told me to say everything else I was doing is just normal.
Were you addicted to pornography as well?
Not watching.
Not watching?
Yeah.
Because you said the sex addiction came first then the drugs was secondary.
Yes.
What did that look like? Because again, I'm going back to the age at which this started. Like you're a teenager, you're 16, 17, you're in 11th grade.
Yeah.
How does a sex addiction
Addiction
begin
start?
to take root, you know, in such a young mind?
Okay, so mostly it's with the series I used to watch. When I started watching the series, I used to watch them for entertainment purposes. But later on, as I kept on going through the seasons, I began to realize that it was not only entertainment they were portraying, but it was also sex that they were portraying in the movies or the series. So now, because of the fact that I liked the entertainment is what made me continue, not realizing that my mind was being reprogrammed.
Yeah.
Then moreover, even the music played a role with regards to reprogramming my mind. Because you find that mostly you talk about drugs, sex, and money. Yeah.
And what genre of music was this? Was it hip hop?
Yes, it
Okay.
was hip hop,
Okay.
and sometimes trap music.
All right.
Yeah.
Back to the addictions. You've really been very explicit in detailing the drug end of things. Sexual addiction in teenagers and amongst our youths.
Yeah.
How many, was it young girls that you were sleeping with?
Yes, it was young girls, girls of my age.
Girls of your age,
Yeah.
so from school.
Some from school, some from Facebook, like would conversate. Yeah.
Like an online meeting.
No, we would talk online,
Okay,
but then make
okay.
arrangements to meet in person. Yeah.
So there was no connections, no relationships. It was just purely to satisfy a need.
Yes.
And you just let go.
Yes.
Wow. And the girls, they had no problem with it either.
No, some did have a problem,
Yeah.
others didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd started by saying there's like 4 C's that help us understand addiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is one that talks about cravings.
Yeah.
So they say that when you have an addiction, you know, you begin to crave for it like the way you'd crave for water and food,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, you know, a natural part of our bodies and life.
Yes.
So is there truth to that, in that, you know, you would crave for sex and crave for drugs and alcohol the way your body would crave for food and water?
For me, it didn't get to that point. Because as I've said, there are stages to this addiction. So for me, I didn't get to that stage. Yeah, I can say I didn't get to that stage. I was not so very, very deep
Okay.
like most people would, to say I can not do without it. Yeah.
All right. I keep having these relapses as you talk because, you know, as a parent, I'm trying to envision my children, you know, being where you were at some point.
Yes.
Did it ever occur to you to try and speak to someone about this, or were you still trying to hide it
Okay.
and keep it very secret?
So the stage where I was at, it was at the point where it was in the secret, where I did not want anyone else to know about it. And that's primarily the first stage of an addiction. It usually happens in the secret. And then later on, for others, is when the addiction gets exposed. Say this one does so and so, that we can call it the second stage. So at that point, when the secret is exposed, people have 2 options. One, either seek help, or 2, not seek help and continue in their addictions, because people know, so I can just continue in their addictions. So for me, it was in the secret, so I never used to do it so that people should know.
Okay.
I used to do it so that no one should come to a point of ever knowing that I was doing what I was doing.
How did you become so good at hiding it?
I-
And before maybe you answer that,
Yeah.
how long did it go on for before we get to the exposure part?
It went on for 4 years.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
And for those 4 years, you're able to hide it from your closest family,
Yes.
except your brother, the one who would leave sermons for you.
Yeah.
Your parents, you were able to hide successfully from them.
Yes.
What did that process of hiding and covering your tracks look like?
Mostly, it looked like lying most of the times. Because if you are going to do something wrong in the secret place, you have to be good at lying. So it came with a lot of lying. It came with a lot of maybe either you come early at home to sleep very early so that you
Okay.
don't get to interact with your parents.
I see.
Or you come a little bit late than they have actually reached, then you go rest so that you don't have to interact with them. The only time you're interacting with them is in the morning hours. And then also for the other part is because when I went to university, I had advocated to say I need to go into a boarding house.
Okay.
So there was that period where I was not with my
Right.
parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I get that. And your brother, how did he pick up on it?
How did he know about it?
Right.
I think because we spend a lot of time together. I think because usually when you look at addicts, you can easily tell the way they look, the way they, yeah. So I think that's how it got to pick up about it, yeah.
Did your appearance begin to change?
In terms of the way I used to look.
Yes, because you just said that you can pick up, on how an addict looks. Did you get to a point where, it was visible to the eye that there's something off about?
No, I didn't
about
change
you?
that much. It was only because maybe when I'm coming back to the room or coming back home, he would see me. He'll be the only person maybe to see me.
Okay.
And I would lie for being tired majority of the times, but I think he definitely knew that there was something off. Yeah.
So I guess proximity then plays a role to a person, right?
Yeah,
In
it
order
does.
for you to pick up.
Yeah.
Hence you making deliberate steps to shy away from your parents,
Yeah.
so they couldn't detect it.
Yes.
I want to find out, on the codeine aspect, I've noticed that, especially now, there's a lot of talk about some over-the-counter medications being used, for some of these activities that you've just explained.
Yeah.
And that is like codeine, which is found in medication like Benylin.
Yeah.
Are those part of what is being taken by young people out there?
Yeah, although the Benylin is not the one that they usually sell. It's the one in the red bottle. It's rarely sold.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
by the...
So you can't buy it over the counter?
No, you can't.
How do you access that one? How are young people accessing
I think
these substances?
we can say there's always somebody who knows somebody you can get the thing from. That's the way it is.
Did you ever get into contact with the source?
I did know certain spots where you could buy it from, yeah.
And did you go to those spots to be able to access what you needed? When
Yeah,
you needed
once
it?
in a while,
Okay.
yeah.
And by those spots, I'm not just talking drugs. Did you go to any spots to try and access sex as well?
No, for access of sex, it was mostly with people that I had conversations with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then back to access and getting hold of substances. You mentioned that whoever had resources amongst us, and you're like in college at the time now. You're not working. Where would the funds come from to sustain the addiction?
So mostly at the time after I left school, I had started a business. So I was not fully broke. I had a business that was running. I was doing broilers at the time. And I think my friends mostly used to sell things like phones. They buy a phone, they sell it just like that. So that's where most of our money would come from. But in the experience of others, you find that they would never know where the money comes from, but somebody is always willing to sponsor your bad habits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did your friends get to a stage where they would sell household goods, sell belongings?
No, not that I know of, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that was all part of just being very clever about concealing what was going on.
Yeah.
How vast is this problem, would you say?
It's very, very, very vast.
Universities?
I can say from high schools all the way to universities and beyond university, also in the working environment.
Yeah.
Because in as much as we can shy away from the topic of addiction, you find that it affects different stage or age groups. So you find that the young ones, some of them are becoming addicts because of what the older ones are doing. So the examples are no longer being good examples, but rather bad examples. And so children are emulating what they are seeing from the elderly. So they think that it's right. So you find that it starts even as far as high school or before high school, even as far as primary and all the way. So you find that for others, they are able to break free during these stages. For others, they actually just remain addicts even up to old age.
If I'm a teacher at a high school, what would be some of the telltale signs to look out for? Because this is starting in high school, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure if this is happening after school hours, but is there any change in behavior, like even in the classroom setup, not just in maybe slumping of grades, but even just character, like behavioral change? Are there things that a teacher or the school would be able to pick up on? Because in your case, I'm assuming even the school was not able to pick up on your habit.
Yeah, so it depends with the stage at which one is at.
Okay.
Yeah, so for others who go to the far as where it is very bad, like you actually need serious help,
Yeah.
that's the one that you can be able to tell.
Okay.
But in the starting stages, you can't really tell to say this is how it is, even all the way to midway stage. You can't tell this is the way this person is. Maybe a few ways you can tell is in the conversations of the way people speak. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And in the heart, that's where you find desires and passions are. So you find that you can be only able to tell that through the conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is why it's very important to actually have conversations with, our children, our young generation, just to be able to pick at what's at the heart.
Yes, although the way the conversation is brought about is what matters as well. Because my mom had attempted to bring up that conversation, but you find that I shunned away from it and I said I wasn't into that habit. Yeah.
Why did she bring it up?
I think she was worried.
Okay.
Yes, I think she was worried, so she had asked me and I just denied it and we brushed it off just like that.
She outrightly asked you if you were into drug abuse?
Yeah, and also if
alcohol.
she asked me those questions and also if I had slept with anybody, then I had said no. Yeah. Because mostly when you are in an addiction and the parent confronts you, we are often afraid of the reaction of the parent when we tell them about our stories. It's not everyone who will react and say, okay, let me help you. Others will begin to criticize and condemn you. And so because you're afraid of the criticism and the condemnation, you choose not to say it. You choose to hide it and let it remain a secret.
Okay. Where was your value system at during the peak of your addiction? Did you ever feel any feelings of guilt or remorse? Was there, a part of you that was cognizant of the fact that what I'm doing right now, is not helping me, it's not beneficial, it's wrong, it's sinful? Was there that awareness prior to the exposure?
So in the beginning stages, yes, it was there.
Okay.
But later on, you begin to ignore that feeling that tells you to say what I'm doing is wrong and you just continue with the wrong habit to the degree that even your conscience dies. Like you can no longer tell right from wrong. The wrong becomes right then, yeah.
And you believe your conscience died?
At that moment,
At that point.
yes.
Tell me about the exposure, because you mentioned that there's a point of exposure now where your activities are out in the open.
Yes.
How were your activities unearthed?
For me, I think no one apart from my older brother knew about my activities.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
In that 4-year period, it was mostly a secret. Yeah. I only got to tell my parents about it when I was willing to change the habit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did this come? Which year was this for you?
Around 2019, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I first started with approaching mom.
Yeah.
And I was expecting her to criticize me because inwardly by then I was feeling guilty, I was feeling criticized, I was feeling condemned, and I had a lot of regret. So I went.
Before you got to your mom, what got you to that point when now you're ready to talk about it?
So it was simply that same moment when I had listened to the sermon.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that sermon literally was your moment of clarity.
Yes.
Something about it just pierced your heart and you were convicted.
Yes.
Okay.
So from that moment, I went ahead and told mom. Yeah, then I told mom, expecting her to criticize me, to judge me, to condemn me, and all these other things that I was already doing to myself at that moment. But apparently she did not. So even the next few days, I was waiting to see her reaction. Maybe she'll change in the way she treats me. Like I had all these expectations, and most of the expectations were negative in the way she was going to treat me. But I found that was not the case.
Wow.
Yeah, and then now I also told Dad about it, and his only statement was that to say, if you see a person who has never done wrong in life, you should come and tell me. We all did things that we were not proud of. It is not the continuation of the bad habit or the bad vice. It is you realizing that this has to come to an end. That is actually great. But you find that everyone has a bad history in which some of them regret some of the things that they did. Yeah.
What was your mom's initial response? Like, I'm trying to imagine you and her, like you're sitting and you've just finished telling her what you've been struggling with and dealing with on your own.
Yeah.
What was her initial reaction to that?
She kept quiet. So after she kept quiet, I asked her one question, are you disappointed? She said, yes, I'm very much disappointed. And then from that moment she said, but I want you to start doing something. She gave me the book of Proverbs to begin to read. So she said I should read a specific number of chapters, and then I'll give her feedback or review time and time again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your dad, you told him soon after?
Yeah.
Or was it the same day?
I know it was soon after.
Soon after,
Yeah.
before your mom could tell him?
Yes.
Okay. After that point, what did the journey begin to look like for you? What lay ahead?
What lay ahead? What lay ahead was, first of all, finishing my university, building a relationship with God. This time, like, because I now got to a point of believing God for myself and not really just what I had grown to know. Then also trying to pick up on business, because my business had died subsequently, before then.
That's the poetry business?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And at the same time, you're still pursuing your law degree?
Yes.
Okay, that didn't suffer at all?
I know my law degree did not suffer at all, yeah.
What has been some of the impact of the addiction? Like, I would believe that, for someone with a sexual addiction, you might struggle with forming long-lasting relationships.
Yes.
What has been the impact of that and even the drugs on you as
an
Chipego?
individual? First of all, the mindset. You find that the mindset gets twisted. The way you view things, the way you view life, it becomes different. Secondly, as you've said, you find that it's very difficult to make long-lasting relationships because of their insecurities, and also mostly when somebody is doing something, it will mostly pin back to the history that you have. So you mostly view things from your perspective and not from the way things really are. Yeah, so you find that there's a little bit of emotional damage, mental damage to their addiction, of which some of it I'm still working on. Yeah.
And has this impacted, are you in a relationship right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And is this something that you've been very open about with your girlfriend or partner? I'm not sure whether it's you get where I'm going.
Yeah, no, it's something that I'm very open about with my girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she didn't have an issue with it, where you're coming from?
No, she didn't have an issue with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have you forgiven yourself?
Yes, it was one of the few things that I needed to do in the beginning. So when I had noticed to say my parents were not condemning and judging me, I then began to realize to say I don't also have to condemn and judge myself. I have to forgive myself.
Yeah.
So that's a moment where I actually forgave myself. Yeah.
Has that been easy?
Yeah.
Walking in your own forgiveness? Because sometimes it's easier to be forgiven by others than for you to forgive yourself.
Yeah, for me it was easier, I think, after my parents treated me the way they treated me, because I was expecting to get judged and criticized and be treated like a criminal, but they did not do that to me. So if they cannot do that to me, what was the essence of myself doing it to myself. Yeah.
What did the recovery process look like? Did you have to go cold turkey? Did you have to, were you at a point, because again, you're saying addictions are different, like the stages of addiction are different.
Yeah.
Did you need to visit a rehab center? Did you
No.
need to get any external help outside of your family?
No. Most of my breaking free from addiction, it starts with the mind. I have come to a point of realization to say if you take control of your mind, you partially take charge and control of your life. Because your mind is like a center of control of your life. Whether we're talking about the conscious mind or the unconscious mind, provided you take control of both of these, then you find that you have taken control over majority of your life.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously your mind is being filtered through God's word now that you are back in right standing.
Yes.
with Christ.
Yes.
Your friends, what does that look like?
I think the hardest thing to break away from is from friends.
Have you broken away?
Yes, I did.
You had to.
Yeah, I had to. It wasn't many years after the telling of my parents.
Yeah.
It was just a few months away from telling my parents, and I had to distance myself. Because if you want to break free completely from an addiction, you have to change your association. Same with any other area of your life. If you want to change certain area of your life, hang out with people who you're seeing that they are a reflection of where you want to go. Otherwise, you will remain where you are. So I had to.
Were they understanding when you broke away?
The way I broke away is that I kept myself very, very busy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think by then Dad had enrolled me for certain lessons with different people.
Okay.
Mostly to develop different skill sets.
Okay.
So I became very preoccupied with that.
Yeah.
So most of the times when they would call, I would tell them I'm busy. Yeah, so we never really had time to interact and spend time together. And moreover, there was also my career, which was something I needed to work on. So I would also use that. Yeah.
Okay. You're an author now.
Yes.
You've written a book.
Yes.
If I can just hold it up, The Life You Long to Live. And this talks about overcoming addictions.
Yes.
So it's detailing what you went through and how you overcame.
Yes, it is.
When did you start writing this book?
I started writing this book, I think about towards the end of 2020. Okay, towards the end of 2020, it was just an idea, and I just wanted to brush it off. Like, I was just like, it's just my imagination, like, let me just forget about it. So now, towards the 2021, I was propelled to begin to write it down. So in 2021, when I started writing down, the reason I had started writing down is because of Dr. Miles. I listened to one of
Miles Monroe? Okay,
yes.
okay.
So Dr. Miles Monroe had a sermon to say why you should write a book.
Oh, okay.
So in that
Wow.
same sermon, you find that I was inspired because of what he had said to say you need to put what you know in a book so that you may be able to help others.
Okay.
So then that inspired me. So 2021, I wrote the first script, shared it with a few people. They gave me different viewpoints on what I needed to work on. And I just kept on working on it until about mid-2021, when I actually came up with the final script, and we were all now finally saying, okay, this is okay, let's just go ahead with it, yeah.
Yeah. And where can people find the book?
Any Great North Road Academy center within Lusaka, or they can contact me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And honestly, it's incredible to see how you've turned your story into something that is now a useful and practical tool to helping someone who might be, where you are.
Yeah.
Be it the person in it or those around them.
Yes.
I'm yet to read it. I'm not sure what it covers, which bases it touches. But just to see you come out on the other side, and be very intentional and deliberate about helping others along, for me, is a story worth sharing and talking about. In conclusion, what would you like to say to someone who probably went further than you did in as far as addictions are concerned? You know, if you could just look into the camera that's in front of you, what would your advice be? You're now the one who's in, you know, sermon mode, playing a sermon for someone with the hope that the way you are convicted, it might convict someone's heart.
Okay, so what I would tell anybody or somebody out there is, provided you're still alive, there is hope. There's hope of breaking free from an addiction. Because it's not something that you were born with, it's something that you learned. And anything learned can be unlearned. Anything that you begin to do in life can be undone. So you find that mostly we lose hope when we have tried different methods, but that doesn't mean that we should stop there. But rather, one must continue until he or she breaks free and becomes free indeed. Yeah. Thank you.
Powerful. Chipego, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you know, fully address such a vast, broad topic in one seating.
Yeah.
But you've done an amazing job,
Thank you very
just
much.
sharing your story and impacting the next person. And I'm so grateful that you made it onto Truth and Tea. Thank you for pouring out of your cup.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
So that's Chipego Siatwambo. Do make sure you reach out to him. Do you have a Facebook page?
Yes, Chipego Siatwambo.
Okay, just follow him on socials to be able to access this book that he's written. Purchase it for yourself or someone you know is, battling an addiction. And one thing that I like about what he said in a nutshell is how, taking back control goes back to the mindset and your belief system. And he ended off with saying, whoever is free indeed, and we find our liberation and true salvation in Christ and Christ alone. And so taking back control of your life really looks a whole lot like giving the control back to Jesus. And you'll find your liberation in that. And this is the beauty of the conversations that we have on this show, Filtered Through Faith. I hope you've learned something. Do tag anyone that you know is struggling in this area. This has been Truth and Tea. Thank you so much. Do catch the show every Wednesdays on Radio Christian Voice at 7 p.m. And look out for the uploads on YouTube, on the Urban Evangelist channel, and also Radio Christian Voice channel. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in.